It's coming, friends. Another powerful cold front with heavy rain, gusty winds, and some much cooler weather for many of us. I've got all the details you need to get prepared. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
How you doing, everyone? Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo on this Friday, February the 16th. As we get rolling into our weekend, some big changes are on the way. Another really strong cold front coming in that will be bringing up some big changes, some wet, windy conditions, and some cooler weather as well. We're going to have a good weekend for the most part across our area. And then we'll get prepared about what's going to be happening early in the week. Although some of you, including the Bahamas, will start to feel the impacts of that cold front before the weekend gets out. So as we get started on this Friday, subscribers, thank you so much for liking the video. If you're not a subscriber yet, please subscribe right now. Click that like button as well. We'll get you started. So we're taking a look right now at the enhanced satellite imagery. When I look at the visible satellite imagery on this Friday afternoon, relatively fair conditions for a good majority of us. Easterly winds continue, mainly dry weather as well. So kind of fair clouds, warmth and humidity are kind of the rule of the day right now. Temperatures on the board for you are mainly well into the 80s, even some upper 80s to lower 90s. You can see that especially down in the Lesser Antilles, down towards Trinidad and Tobago, places like Santo Domingo, right around 88 for a daytime high. It's been warm and humid in Jamaica. We're kicking some 90-degree plus marks across portions of Central America and the Yucatan. One of the exceptions is going to be up in the Bahamas. We're starting to see some clouds move back in, but still able to reach the mid and the upper 70s in most spots. As far as winds go, we're having breezy conditions here and there. I mentioned it in the last video, very strong winds in the south central part of the Caribbean. And you can see that right now across the ABC Islands, Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire. Bonaire has had a nearly 40-mile-an-hour wind gust in the last couple of hours, and the same thing for Aruba. So a very windy Friday afternoon across the ABC Islands. It hasn't spelled a ton of rain. There's been a quick passing shower here or there, but it's very clear to see on this visible satellite imagery, we stay with our easterlies right now, warm, humid wind direction, certainly some strong breezes from time to time, and even towards Kingston, they've had a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust. And again, we're seeing some fair clouds roll in, the opportunity for an isolated shower, but some big changes on the way with this next front. And this next front right now is beginning to develop across the northern side of the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf Coast states. You can see all the wind energy kind of behind the front. It's going to take a little bit, but eventually we're going to get this kick off towards the south and to the east, and that is what's going to be moving through the Bahamas and the Caribbean as we go into late this weekend and especially early next week. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to start off with what the winds are going to be looking like here. And then we'll look at the rain, and we're going to get into some island by island forecasting as well, and certainly talk about the timing. So looking at this right now on these wind vectors, and again, I show this because it's very easy to see when the front is going to pass your area, right? The front comes in, the winds will turn out of the north and northwest. Behind the front, ahead of it, we'll have an east to a south wind. And we can see those easterlies continue right now through the Lesser Antilles, portions of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, where the front, if it moves through, will be moving through in a weaker variety, and then much later in the week, talking about a Wednesday, maybe even Thursday time frame there. Generally speaking, the farther west that you go, of course, the impacts of that front will be moving in earlier. And certainly there'll be some nice wind impacts for the Bahamas, places like Freeport and Nassau, and then the Cayman Islands, places like Georgetown, Jamaica as well, Kingston and Montego Bay, Cancun, Belize City. You can see that north wind coming up, and we'll just kind of stair step this again. Looking at the timing of this, we'll start to see the winds pick up in the Bahamas as we get into our late Saturday, but especially Sunday. Really, it's Cancun that'll start to see the first wind shift, and you can see how strong those north winds could be. You get into those white arrows, and you're looking at winds over 30 knots, and then those winds push in to the northwest Bahamas, again, Freeport and Lucaya and Nassau, and then eventually as we get into our Monday into places like the Cayman Islands and Jamaica. and that north wind drives in. And look at this area of low pressure here. There's almost a couple of lows here. You kind of have a mid-level low that'll be moving across first, and then a little bit stronger low at the surface that's going to try and drive through here and almost meander, kind of just becomes cut off, if you will. But it drives a north wind deep into the Caribbean here. And so these are the areas with the cooler changes, the best chance for some heavier rain and wind, but even into the Turks and the Caicos and Hispaniola and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. We're going to get some rain here, and we're still going to stay with our easterlies across the Lesser Antilles to bring us some pretty warm conditions. Again, anywhere from about Martinique south, including Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, some of the areas not directly impacted by this front, staying with the strong east winds. So let's take a look at the rain. That's kind of an overview of the wind, and the wind is going to be exceptional again in northwest areas. So that's something I'll be monitoring to kick up surf and sea conditions and to provide some swells as well. So this is the GFS model, and you can clearly see the rain that'll begin to move in with this front. Now, I do expect it to be most potent in our far northwest areas, but there will still be some moisture to play with here, and we're going to have a convergence of winds again in the Turks and the Caicos and Hispaniola and Puerto Rico and the northern Leeward Islands, where we might get a little bit more rain than even what the GFS model is trying to show, and I'll show you the NAM model coming up here in a bit as well. But let's talk about the timing of this. Again, I want to be clear. Generally speaking, the weekend is looking pretty good, even in our northwest areas. It won't be until late Saturday, Sunday for the Bahamas, and we'll get really specific about the Bahamas coming up. But again, just kind of looking at the broader view right now, you can start to see here as we get into our Sunday evening and then Monday, that rain begin to move in. And again, this is going to come with some very breezy, if not windy conditions, and certainly some cooler air to move along with it as well. Now, as we get out to 5 days, you can see a smattering of rain as we get into the northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico. I'm going to expand this out just a little bit longer here in time so you can kind of get an idea of what the model is picking up on as we roll into, say, mid to even late week. Now, it's not going to be maybe as concentrated a rain as the front that came in a week or so ago and brought some exceptionally heavy downpours and some flooding issues to Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the northern Leeward Islands. But you can see at the end of this time frame here, when I extend it back out and kind of pause it as we get into, almost 6-7 days out, there's a good little slug of moisture here, and we'll keep an eye on whether this can extend farther to the south and to the west. But there will be some rain and wind impacts here. It won't be as significant as areas west. We just want to mention again, this is a very large scale feature, just a very prominent feature here. And again, it kind of extends all the way into the northern Atlantic. Obviously, everything kind of clears and dries out from west to east later in the week, but it's going to be one of those things. Now, if I switch over to the NAM model here real quickly, and I loop this up for you guys. And again, it doesn't go as far out, but again, it's just kind of an indication of what the NAM is picking up. Just a different model. I like to show you kind of differences here when we're talking about such an important feature here. So I'm going to let this load up real quickly here. Let's see. There we go. Reflectivity. And I think we're far out as we'll go here. This is only going to go out about 3.5 days, but it gets you an idea of what the NAM is showing. Now, they are in fairly good agreement. I mean, again, this is going to be a good solid line of rain from places like Belize and Guatemala up through the Yucatan, Cuba, and then into the Bahamas. Again, some of that moisture will break apart a little bit in the northwest side of the Caribbean, and so maybe scattered rain in the forecast for places like the Cayman Islands and Jamaica, but they're still going to get some good strong winds. Could have some tidal issues there. We had some exceptionally strong north winds with that last powerful front that came through. I could see that as well. And then that rain again still marches off towards the east, but breaks apart as it does so for the weekend here across places like the Lesser Antilles and Trinidad, Tobago, and Barbados. It's going to be kind of scattered rain with those easterlies that'll be working its way on through. So that's kind of the broad view here. I'm going to get back over to the GFS model because it just goes out a little bit further in time. Going to put this back out to 5 days, and then I'm going to loop this back up. And as I'm doing so again, thank you so much for liking the video. I appreciate you here. We're going to go kind of island by island right now and kind of break down the timing and what I expect. So I'm going to let this loop back up one more time. Shouldn't take too long, and then we'll get started. What do you say we start off in the northern side of the Lesser Antilles? Actually, you know what? We'll start off in Puerto Rico and then work our way off towards the east. So for my friends in Puerto Rico, Ponce, San Juan, Isolated rain is going to be in the forecast the next couple of days, still staying with the easterly breeze. Again, the weekend looks really good even through early in the week. There's just not a lot of rain in the forecast until we start to see that moisture move in. And I believe that at earliest, that's going to be late Tuesday and into Wednesday. So you do have a very nice forecast for Anguilla and Barbuda and Antigua. I will be watching for surf and sea conditions to come up a little bit as that front arrives. We're far enough away in time right now. We have enough time to monitor the situation. At this point in time, no high surf advisories, nothing like that. And you can see it's just isolated rain for Guadeloupe and Dominica and Martinique and St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well. Barbados, we have had the rougher swells in the western coast, but those have even relaxed. And I do expect relatively good marine forecast, beach forecast, surf forecast, at least through Monday. And then we'll start to see that kind of come back in. But again, what we're dominated by in this area of the Caribbean is the easterlies for the next 5 days. Shallow moisture, not a lot of rain, including Trinidad and Tobago. So the Barbados forecast is actually relatively dry. It's just a 20% chance for showers through Sunday, and then a few more showers on Monday and Tuesday, but nothing outrageous. It's going to be fairly warm. It's going to be fairly humid. Daytime highs in Barbados, Spacetown, Bridgetown in the upper 80s. Again, better boating conditions for the next few days as well. Should be relatively nice. And that's the forecast for Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada as well. You can see, again, there's just not a lot of green on the old map here. As I mentioned for my friends of the ABC Islands, really the biggest story here the last couple of days has been the wind. Again, on this Friday afternoon, we've had nearly 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. It hasn't spelled a lot of rain. Wind should relax a little bit over the weekend, but still pretty blustery conditions over the islands. Drop in the comment section below if you live in this area. Let me know what you've been seeing, but I can tell you the biggest story has been the winds that have been dominating the area. For Hispaniola, my friends in Santo Domingo and Punta Cana and Lakay and Port-au-Prince, relatively speaking, will be dry until at least Tuesday, where we'll start to see that first signs of the moisture beginning to move in with the front, and at least some isolated showers, and then some cooler weather in the forecast. Notice it gets to places like the Turks and Caicos and Cuba first, so that's something that I'll be closely monitoring. And again, in general, the farther northwest that you go, the rain holds together a little bit more before it breaks apart. So generally speaking, as you get west towards my friends in Jamaica, we're going to have the opportunity for at least a few more showers in this area here. Now again, the wind is going to be a big story in Jamaica. So the first thing I'm going to actually do here, I'm going to switch over to the wind vector product, and I'm going to go back in because I want to talk about how this wind is going to impact places like Kingston and Montego Bay and everything else. If I switch over here, and I'm just going to show kind of stair step here as we go into, let's say, early in the week. So let me move over to that. Notice that that wind shift begins to move in. Today's the 16th, so this is going to be late Monday evening. That's when the winds are going to start to turn out of the north. So we're going to see the surf conditions and the wave action really pick up on the northern side of the island, Montego Bay and Ocho Rios and even Negril, as we get into Monday evening. Then as we get into the day on Tuesday here, we can see those winds have turned basically out of the north across the island. So again, it's going to kick up surf and sea conditions on the north side of the island. It's going to drag in some rain during this time frame, and then it's going to bring some cooler air. Now ahead of it, it's still going to be relatively warm, and as I have mentioned several times, a relatively nice weekend. Again, not a lot of rain is going to be in the forecast for Jamaica until we start to see the actual push with the front. So looping back up the rain here, you'll just see a little bit more green on the map as we get into Monday and Tuesday. Look, I'm not going to rule out some scattered rain as we head over the weekend, but just a better chance for some overall downpours and more widespread showers, certainly late Monday and into Tuesday and Wednesday. So here it is on Future Track. Again, this is going to be early on Sunday morning. We'll stair step it out. A few showers, maybe just offshore. Here's your better chance for rain on Monday, the 19th. We'll start to see that front move in. Tuesday morning looks even better. You can see that rain across the area. And again, I think it's a good push of rain across all of the island. No one area with a better chance than others. So Port Antonio and Kingston and Portmore and Spanish Town, Maypen and Mandeville and Montego Bay, and Negril and Savannah Lamar, Westmoreland Parish in general. Everyone has a good chance for some rain as we get into our Tuesday. So we're just looking better here, and we're certainly going to be changing up the forecast. So here it is in Montego Bay. over the next 5 days. Just a 20% chance for a shower the rest of this Friday and Saturday. Just a little bit more on Sunday, but many dry hours in locations. It's more about the breeze and the humidity over the weekend. Then the rain begins to move in late Monday and on Tuesday. So showers, and they'll be fairly widespread during those days. And it's going to be breezy, and it's going to be fairly wet, and daytime highs will be coming back down as well. By Tuesday afternoon, the high in Montego Bay will only be at 82 degrees. Morning lows could be sneaking into the low 70s, maybe even some upper 60s for a brief time. And just a relatively cooler forecast behind this front. Now, of course, get into detail here with Jamaica. And if you want even more detail, I put out a member exclusive only video earlier in the day. We really focus on Jamaica and the Bahamas and Belize and Barbados in those videos. So if you want those even bigger details across those areas, think about becoming a member and clicking that join button. It's 99 cents a month. It's also just a great way to support us here at Meteo Mundo to get those exclusive member only videos. And if you are a member, thank you very much. I'd also remind you to hit the notification bell, because that way you know when I post those member only videos. But that's what it looks like for my friends in Jamaica. And again, as we just get farther west, we get into the rain and the wind a little bit earlier. So for Belize City, we'll start to see this rain move in Saturday and into Sunday. It's going to get pretty wet across Central America and portions of the Yucatan Peninsula as well. So let's start it out. I'm going to move back a little bit here. This is going to be early on Sunday morning, and then as we get into Sunday afternoon, here comes those showers for San Pedro and Orange Walk, San Ignacio and Belize City. Pretty wet just across the coastline of Central America through Guatemala and then through Honduras as well. San Pedro Sula, Roatan will certainly catch some of these showers, and again, some cooling northerly breeze. Now you will dry out a little bit earlier, so it does become a bit drier, although I do expect a few showers to still redevelop even behind the front Monday and into Tuesday. But it's going to be a pretty wet Sunday across these areas, and that would include our friends up in Cancun and Cozumel, and you can see those showers working their way through. So a little bit earlier for the rain in Belize City. The rest of today, relatively dry, a few showers on Saturday, but really it's more about the warmth and the humidity. Again, south winds ahead of our front. We go all the way up to 88 degrees for tomorrow. Here come the showers, and some of them could be heavy at times across the coastline of Belize. It's an 80% chance for rain. Monday, we're still left with a 50% chance for showers, 40% chance on Tuesday. But again, behind the front, it gets cooler. Just 80 for the daytime high on Monday and 82 degrees on Tuesday. So we'll look at the total rain coming up across our area as well. But this is one of the areas that could get maybe an inch or two of rain or more in some isolated spots. Now we get up to my friends in the Bahamas. And again, one of the areas that could have more impacts, just being a little bit farther north and west geographically. So gonna let this run. And the first thing I'm gonna do, we'll go on over to our HER model. Again, our nice high resolution product here. Gonna expand this out into, as we get into Sunday, where I'm going to show you the GFS and kind of break it down. The main reason I want to show you this first is that the majority of our Saturday is actually going to be okay. It's not until very late Saturday and then overnight into Sunday that the wet weather does begin to drive in. So for the Northwest Bahamas, for Nassau and Dunmore Town and Marsh Harbor, and then Bimini and Walker's Key and Freeport, here's my advice. Get out and enjoy Saturday early. Get the boating in early. Get the beach going in early. Get the shopping done early. The earlier you get your activities done on Saturday, the better off you're going to be. This is Saturday at 5 o'clock, and you can see that first batch of rain moving into Walker's Key and Freeport and Lucaya and West End. But again, it's relatively late in the day. Sure, it's going to be breezy, and the sea conditions will begin to churn up a little bit, but still overall, Saturday is looking pretty good. Then as we get into Saturday night, that's when the wind and the rain begins to pick up, and then the rain just becomes much more widespread as we get into our Sunday. It's just going to be a wetter forecast overall. And the Northwest Bahamas is one of the areas that has the potential for significant rain and some isolated flooding. So when I go back over to the GFS, and again, that's our high resolution model, it goes 48 hours out. So let me get back over here and we'll expand this out again to 5 days, and I'll let this loop up. Now the timing of the GFS and the name of the HER are all in very good agreement. It's late Saturday, mainly into the evening hours for this rain to move in. So I'll stop it there and then we'll go from there. And you can start to see as we get into Sunday, now here comes the inundation of the rain. Sunday does look to potentially be a washout for New Providence and for Grand Bahama if you have outdoor plans. Again, use your best judgment. It doesn't look very good. It's going to be very wet. And then we'll still see some rain moving in onto Monday and not completely dry until Tuesday and into Wednesday. Now it's going to be some beautiful winter sunshine and cooler weather later into the week. Now this batch of rain, again, still pulls deep into the central Bahamas and then eventually into the Turks and Caicos. Obviously, the timing is later. It's going to be more Monday into Tuesday in these areas, but still a swath of at least some heavier rain. But the concentration of the most persistent rain and the potential for at least some isolated flooding is going to be in the Northwest Bahamas. And your timing on that is going to be Sunday and into early on Monday as the rain really does set in. Look at the wind with this as well in this area. So I'll switch over to our wind gust product. And again, this one, instead of being arrows, will be colors. And so what kind of winds can we see? Well, again, remember, we had gale warnings that came in with the last most significant front. We also had some stronger storms. If you guys remember, I covered that live for you here on Meteo Mundo. I still expect there to be some strong winds, and there is the opportunity that we will have not only small craft advisories, but potentially gale watches as well. I'll be watching that over the weekend and keep you updated on it. But again, this would be for late Saturday and into Sunday. You can see there are some reds on the board. That would be some gusts up to 40 knots, maybe just north of the islands, maybe some 20 to 30 knot winds that come along with it. And again, you can kind of clearly see the wrap up of this mid-low here moving through mainly just north of the Bahamas with the maximum of wind, but still some blustery conditions and a lot of rain that goes along with it. So here's the Grand Bahama forecast. No rain for today. Showers move in late in the day. Again, through the afternoon, we're mainly dry, but late afternoon, especially early evening, and then overnight into Sunday, that's when the weather falls apart. Can't rule out a few thunderstorms on Sunday as well. Not too concerned about rotation, but I also can't rule out a water spout or two on Sunday. So just, again, monitor the weather on Sunday. It does not look great. We'll begin to clear out through the day on Monday, and that's when the cooler weather and the north winds drive in. Just 75 with the rain on Sunday, but even cooler on Monday at 73, and a beautiful winter day on Tuesday, 76 for the daytime high. But again, it is going to get kind of on the cooler side there as well. All right, friends, that's what it looks like across the area. Let's take a look at our total precip before we get out of here. And again, let me click that button. There you go. So this is the amount of rain that is expected to fall over the next 5 days. And again, this is just going to be one shot of the model. Anywhere that you see the purples, the pinks, and into the whites and grays, that's heavier rain. So again, it's not going to be very significant, at least over the next 5 days, for the Leeward Islands. There, maybe a quarter of an inch at most. Same thing for Aruba. As we get into Jamaica, one of the first spots that could pick up a ½ inch of rain or more. Could be isolated in nature to get that amount, but I do expect a good chance for rain in Jamaica on Monday and Tuesday. So hope everyone gets some rain if you need it there. Where we start to see, again, the potential for a little bit more significant rain is going to be the coastline of Central America. Excuse me, I went a little bit too far. There we are. So again, you can see that this is back down towards Costa Rica and Panama, but there's a nice little maximum there. And then as I work my way up towards Roatan and Belize City, as I mentioned, maybe these areas could get an inch of rain or more. The model is more in the ½ inch category, so not as much in the way of heavier rain there. Same thing for Cancun. You can see just offshore, there's a maximum of an inch of rain or more, but still could be some wet weather. Just kind of not the best forecast to be outside for the weekend there in Cancun with pockets of heavier rain. But it's really clear to see this maximum here. It's in the Gulf of Mexico, and then it's across the peninsula of Florida and through the northwest side of the Bahamas. Again, just north of Walker's Key. The model is really painting on more than 3+ inches of rain. There is a pretty tight gradient the farther south that you go. So right now, it's more like an inch, maybe 1.5 inches in some spots. There's the Freeport area, more than 1 inch of rain. The Nassau, New Providence area, again, the opportunity to get more than 1 inch of rain in a couple of spots in this area as well. You get the idea. Some maximums potentially for the central side of the Bahamas, and then into the Turks and Caicos, things fall off. Not a lot of rain, at least right now, in the forecast for Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the northern Leeward Islands. But again, everyone gets this wind shift and the cooler weather diving down with this rain. But the maximum does look to stay just a little bit to our north. That's good news, but I still expect some pockets of at least 1 to 2 inches in a couple of spots as well. So big changes on the way for most of you early to mid next week. For the Bahamas and the Yucatan and places like Cancun and Belize and those areas late this weekend, especially on Sunday. So I'm going to be monitoring that situation for you. I promise you that. Again, thank you so much for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing. You get the idea. Our next big storm system is on the way, and that's something I'll continue to track. Have a great one, friends, and I appreciate you. I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.